is where I'm at. We'll go ahead and get going. Thanks, everyone, for spending a bit of your time today with me for this presentation titled Bring the Library to the Online Classroom. My name is Eric Frierson, and looking through the attendees list, I've actually met quite a few of you before, so it's good to see some familiar faces in the room. I am the Manager of Discovery Services Engineering at EBSCO, and we play a fairly unique role in the industry in that my team, which in North America is composed of about 6 people, we've all been librarians at some point in the past, and most of us have been systems librarians. So we typically like to think outside the box when it comes to implementing EBSCO products in libraries. So the product that I'm going to show you today, which is Curriculum Builder, is actually one that I'm the lead developer for at this point, and it came out of a project that I was working on while I was head of library systems at St. Edward's University here in Austin, Texas. So that's what we're going to dive into, and there is a Q&A. Feel free to use it. I probably will stop intermittently to go through the Q&A and answer your questions, so send them in as you have them. So let's go ahead and get started with this. This is a map of St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas. And I used to work, I'm not sure if you can really see on the screen, but towards the top left of this map, there's a Monday library. And that's where my office was, that's where the library building was, and that kind of thing. And if you think about the way that most campuses are laid out, the library often holds a central part physically on campus, but even in this case where we're off to the side a little bit up a fairly steep hill for our students, we were in a separate place from where the actual action of the university was happening physically. So if we think about, in a brick and mortar type of campus, students do most of the work of their, college education within the classroom. So here I've noted kind of where some of the classrooms are at St. Edward's University in an effort to distinguish that when students think about going to college and doing the work of the university, all of the teaching and learning, it happens in the classrooms. They don't typically think of, I'm doing my learning and interacting with my professors in the library. The library is kind of seen as a place where you can go get resources, you can get that research help, you can find materials. The way that you've defined your library on your campus may be different, but in the end, the actual teaching and learning is happening everywhere else on campus and not usually in the library. So this project actually sought to draw parallels to the digital space. So here's an example library website from LSU. All right, we've got this LSU library website here. This is where you can come and do research. You can get that research help. You can find all those resources. But in the end, there is a digital equivalent here of classrooms being separate from the library. In the digital world, those classrooms are Blackboard, Moodle, Desire to Learn, Canvas, and K-12 institutions. It's similar. There are a number of other places where students and faculty are interacting with each other that isn't the library website. So one of the challenges that we saw at St. Edward's was, how do we inject the library into these learning management systems such that we could be effective? Now, we had tried many, many things in the past. So, for example, we were able to convince a lot of faculty members to embed a search box in their Blackboard course. That had some success. It was nice to be able to put a search box right within the learning management system. But in the end, it wasn't that great of an innovation. Students would be in the classroom, and to be honest with you, if they wanted to go off and search the library's resources, they knew how to get to the library's homepage and would go and do that. So having a search box within Blackboard itself didn't add just a ton of value to being in these classroom spaces. So as we got to thinking about what would a meaningful embedding of library materials be in these classrooms, we stumbled across a protocol called the LTI protocol. And before I put everyone to sleep with the acronym, I do want to explain it very briefly so you can understand how this product is unique and how it interacts with learning management systems such as the ones that you see on the screen. An LTI tool, LTI stands for Learning Technologies Interoperability. And it's a way that Blackboard and Canvas and all of these learning management systems have agreed that they are all going to adhere to this particular protocol. I've worked with a number of different learning management systems out there, and in the academic space and K-12 space, there are very, very few learning management systems that don't agree to the LTI protocol. What this means is that libraries or library vendors such as EBSCO can develop tools that know how to get better interactions with these systems rather than just dumping some embed code into a content page or something like that. So on the left, what you see on the screen is the LMS box here. Typically in a learning management system, you have a quizzes module. You have a way to post links to external websites. You have a way to create folders and upload files. There's a number of functions that are native to these learning management systems. One thing that's missing out of the box is interaction with library materials. So what we've done is we've leveraged that LTI tool to create a new module, essentially, a new tool for these learning management systems. I do want to describe a bit on how this LTI protocol tool works. So you imagine if you're logged into Blackboard and you want your students to go visit a website. Well, it's pretty easy in Blackboard to go post a link inside your class website, and then students click on it, and now they're over at that website. An LTI tool, effectively, is just a link to a website. There's nothing different about it. So when a student clicks on an LTI tool, it actually just takes them to an outside website. In the case of Curriculum Builder, if someone clicks on the Curriculum Builder tool in Learning Management System, it's going to take them to our Curriculum Builder website. Now, the thing that makes LTI special is that when a student clicks on that link, it actually sends a batch of data over to our website, all right? So that basic LTI launch data could include, but doesn't have to include, the user's full name. It could include their email address. What's important is that it includes the role of the user. So, for example, when someone clicks on one of these links in Blackboard, it tells Curriculum Builder, hey, here comes a student, or here comes an instructor. And that way, whenever Curriculum Builder is deciding what am I going to show to this user, it knows whether a student or an instructor is coming in. It also shares which institution this user is coming from. So even though we're managing the Curriculum Builder website, we know when someone from Drew University is coming in, or we know when someone from LSU is coming in. That bit of data is included in this link that a user is following. We also know which course they're coming in from, as well as the course name. And we even know in many of these learning management systems which link they clicked within Blackboard and what label was on that link. So all of this data lets us create a really integrated feeling experience. So even though Curriculum Builder is not a native plugin for Blackboard or Moodle or Canvas or any of these systems, your administrators don't have to go in and add anything significant to their own platforms in order to get Curriculum Builder to work. Even though Curriculum Builder is some external website, the fact that this LTI protocol allows us to know so much about the user coming into Curriculum Builder, that allows us to do something really interesting with it. I do want to point out that I mentioned some of these things are optional. The user's full name and email address are often things that campuses do not want to send a third party. So for example, you might be at an institution where sharing any personally identifying information is not allowed. In that case, you don't have to send us that data. That's perfectly fine. But what we have found is when we interact with IT campuses, IT units at schools and in academic institutions, we have found that the LTI protocol has actually been cleared for a lot of FERPA purposes. From the IT department's perspective, sharing a full name and email address is usually okay. So I want to point out really quickly which learning management systems actually have LTI capabilities before diving into a live demonstration of what Curriculum Builder is and how it actually gets library materials into a course. I splashed up some of the most popular ones up on the screen. So Blackboard, Moodle, D2L, Canvas, Sakai, Pearson. The list really goes on and on and on in terms of which one they work for. However, if you do go and Google LTI conformance, you'll be able to look up a list of learning management systems that do work with the tool. So if you're not sure if your learning management system is set up to work with Curriculum Builder, Google the name of your learning management system and LTI, and if you see anything on there that indicates that that learning management system can handle LTI, then the answer is likely yes. I also want to point out here that LTI may seem like a foreign acronym to us. So again, it stands for Learning Technologies Interoperability. And while that may be a new acronym to most of the people in the room, it's likely not a new acronym to your campus IT department or your local IT departments. All right? LTI to a Canvas administrator is like MARC is to a librarian. We know what MARC records are. They know what LTI tools are. And as a result, if you're in a situation where you don't have the best relationship with your IT department and they're the ones that manage these learning management systems, if you can go and tell them, hey, we've got a vendor that has an LTI tool, chances are they'll know exactly what you're talking about and know how it plugs into their system without you needing to say anything more about the tool. That makes it a little bit easier to get buy-in from that department because they're comfortable with the LTI protocol and what it means for them. I'm also going to show you how long it actually takes to implement Curriculum Builder to site as we go through this. So let me go ahead and dive into a live demonstration real quick. There is one specific problem that Curriculum Builder is trying to solve, all right? And this is what I was concerned with at St. Ed's was the fact that faculty members those who were motivated to use library materials often faced challenges getting library materials into their learning management system because of all of the proxying that need to happen, because of all the authentication, because of the session variables that were in the library resources when they went in and searched. So I'll give you kind of the typical scenario. All right, let's say I'm a faculty member, and I'm best friends with my librarian, of course. So I want to do right by my librarian and use library licensed materials and assign those out to my students because, one, I'm also like my students. I don't want to have to give them a course pack and make them, go and pay tons of money to use materials that the library is already subscribing to. So one thing that I would like to do is I would like to link to a library reading here in my learning management system. Well, there are one of two things I could do at this point. All right. One is I could leave Canvas here and go over to my library's website. I could find the article that I want them to read, and then I could do one of two things. I could either get the persistent link for that article, come back here to Canvas and paste it in, or I could download the PDF document out of the library database to my desktop, come back here and upload it as a PDF document into Canvas. All right? Both of those will work, but there are inherent problems with both of those kind of routes to getting library materials in here. All right, and I'm pretty certain most of you are already familiar with what those problems are, but one problem is persistent linking is not easy to do. All right, we as librarians and as library staff members, persistent linking is something that's kind of in our toolbox. We know how to do that, and we know to look for persistent links whenever we're trying to link a user to an item. However, that's not something that faculty members or teachers do every day. So inevitably, when they go to your library's website and they find an article, rather than looking for a persistent link, what they'll do is they'll go up into that address bar up at the top of the screen. They'll copy that URL that's there, and that's what they'll paste in Canvas. But that's what causes problems. Too often, a faculty member or a teacher will be on campus, so they won't have a proxy prefix up in that URL. But all of their students are off campus, so when the student clicks on that link, it doesn't go through the appropriate authentication pattern, and they get a paywall or access denied. Other times in that URL at the top, there's a lot of session-specific information, which means it won't work except for that user at that time. So there's a lot of frustration around using persistent links because often they're buried or very difficult to find on library databases, right? So that's when we find faculty members defaulting over to the second route, where they download that PDF document to their computer and upload it into the learning management systems. Technically, this works fine. Faculty members can click on that PDF document and they're off to the races. The students can click on it and they're reading, and from a technology perspective, there is no issue. Now, your campus IT might have some issue with a lot of PDF documents being uploaded, but generally the bigger problem here is the library is not collecting any full text usage anytime a student downloads the PDF out of Canvas or Moodle or Blackboard. They got that full text usage statistic when the faculty member downloaded that article, but every time a student uses it, which could be 90, 100 students, I mean, maybe they use that same PDF over and over again, semester after semester. In those cases, they may not be seeing the usage that's there. All right, so these are the problems I'm trying to solve with Curriculum Builder. So what I've written here is a much easier way to bring library materials into class. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm in Canvas right here. Let me make it a bit bigger so you can see. I'm logged into my course as a teacher, so I'm a teacher of this class. I've got an assignment section. I've got modules, I've got quizzes, I've got all kinds of things that I can give to my students. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to modules here. I want to point out that I could also do it in assignments. The usage of LTI tools may vary from learning management system to learning management system. In Canvas, you can put it in the module section, or you can put it in the assignment section. Blackboard, I think you put it under the tools drop-down menu. In Moodle, it's an activity. So the way that LTI shows up in your learning management system may be different from what you're seeing on the screen, but effectively it's going to have the same kind of effect. All right, so I've got this week 2 module that I'm preparing for my students, and one thing I want my students to do is go read about the history of nanotechnology from materials at the library. So I'm going to click on this plus symbol on the right-hand side. This plus symbol is where I would go to add a new quiz or to create a new content page, so just some text I wanted to give my students. Or I could plug in a discussion board if I wanted my students to have a discussion, all right? So I'm very familiar as a teacher with this list of things that I have, that I can do. Now, Curriculum Builder is installed as an external tool, all right? And here, whenever I select external tool, it gives me the list of options that I have for external tools. And Curriculum Builder isn't the only one. Teachers may be using things like VoiceThread, or Macmillan Harcourt actually has an LTI tool. Films on Demand has an LTI tool. So this may not be their first LTI tool. So they may already be very comfortable with looking in this list for new things they can do in their classes. Now, there are 2 versions of Curriculum Builder out there right now. One is for EBSCO Discovery Service. So if you're an EDS customer, we've got a version of Curriculum Builder that will expose your entire library's collection into a Curriculum Builder. But if you're not an EDS customer, we do have an EBSCO host-only version of it, which will expose every database you have through EBSCO host in this particular tool. So the difference here is merely content. The entire functionality is identical. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to go ahead and pick the EDS version. And you'll notice here I've called this One Search Reading List. You can brand an LTI tool whatever you'd like in the learning management system. So rather than calling it Curriculum Builder, which may not mean much to a faculty member, I'm going to call it One Search because that's what we brand our discovery system at our library. And I'm going to call it One Search Reading List so they know what this tool does. So you can decide how you want it branded and what kind of description you want to include under the tool whenever you're setting up Curriculum Builder. Here I'm going to call this my History of Nanotech Reading List. So I'm going to build a reading list here, and I'll add an item. You'll notice that it adds a new link under week 2 here called History of Nanotechnology Reading List. And whenever I click on it, this is where it's actually going to that external website, and it's going to load that external website here in the middle of the screen. It feels like a very integrated part of Canvas because we've got it within the frame, but you also have options to open it up in a new window if you'd prefer that instead. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and search my library's materials. Any search I do here is going to mirror the results that I would have gotten had I gone through the library's discovery system. Again, this might be searching through your EBSCO host content if you go with the EBSCO host only version of this. I'm going to go with nanotechnology history and do a search. This is using a profile that would be in your EBSCO admin account called Curriculum Builder. And it's querying all of the stuff that your library has to offer. So here I've got a list of results. I can facet and limit on the left-hand side just like I normally could. I could sort and change my display options as I'd like. There's my full text link for each of these items as well as the title of this stuff. So here I'm going to click on Add to Reading List to add a few of these items to the list. What's happening when I click this giant button that says Add to Reading List is it's not making a copy of this PDF document. Instead, it's copying the appropriate information needed to link to the library's licensed version of this particular reading. At this point, I'm done. I could go off and grade some quizzes. I could close the window. The moment that I click on this Add to Reading List, this is now assigned to my students to read. All right? So the moral of the story is in order to get a document for my students to read and to use that library licensed copy of it, all I really need to do is go to Add New Reading List, search for what I want, and click the Add to Reading List button. You can do this with ebooks. You can do it with a number of different things. So let me do something a little bit more broad here so we can find just a book to add in. Here we go. So here's a couple of ebooks. I'll do History of Beginner's Guide because that could be something that I would want my students to read. All right. But effectively, I'm done. That's all that you need to do as a faculty member in order to assign these readings to a student. However, there are more functions within Curriculum Builder. So I'm going to click on See Current Reading List up here at the top. And that will show me the items that I've added so far to this particular reading list. Here I can sort them. So let's say I really want them to read this nanotechnology article first. So I drag and I drop it up to the top. I can also add notes. So maybe for this History of Beginner's Guide, I want to say read chapter 5 and then save my notes. That way they don't think they have to read the whole book. All right. I can also add a web resource. So let's say I want them to go and read a website that's not part of the library's collection. I could just punch in something here like NFL.com. I want them to go look at the NFL website for some reason. I'm sorry, I work for a company that's based in Boston. I got to say, maybe I want them to go look at a website that showed the New England Patriots did not play in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to add that to my reading list with all apologies to Patriots fans out there. So now I've got this NFL website thing that I want them to read absolutely first. And I can add notes to it and sort it just like the rest of them. I can also add text or instructions. All right, so for example, if they've got a print textbook associated with their course, I can remind them that they need to read chapters 6 and 8 of textbook and add that to the reading list. So they don't have to link to anything in particular. You could just add notes to this as well. All right, I can also sort into folders. This was actually put in because some learning management systems like Sakai, for example. Sakai only allows you to put one LTI tool in a class at a time. So in Canvas, I can create many different reading lists in a course. But because Sakai says only one instance of an LTI tool in each course, we built in this foldering feature that allows you to create subfolders within a list. That way, if you are using something like Sakai and you need a foldering system within within the reading list itself, you can create some organization here. I can also import from an existing list. So if I click up here as import from existing list, I'll see lists that I've made in the past, but I will also see things called all public lists. So if I go back to my reading list once again, and I look over here on the right, it says this list is private, all right? That means nobody else is going to be able to see or copy my list. But if I toggle that over to public, what that means is other course instructors at my institution are going to be able to see and copy this list into their own, all right? So there are options to copy things in. All right. I am going to do a quick Q&A because there's some questions popping in here. So let's say they have EDS and say one of the search results is not available in full text EBSCO, but is available in another vendor's database. How would that appear in Curriculum Builder? All right. So for those of you on the call that are not familiar with EBSCO Discovery Service, the way that we integrate non-EBSCO materials is through a giant central index that's populated by metadata that we get from a ton of publisher partners. Those publisher partners will often tell us how to directly link to their full text on their platforms through a technology we call custom linking. But on occasion, maybe the only area you have full text of an item is through, let's say, a ProQuest resource, for example. You get a result. The full text is over in ProQuest. For those cases, we use open URL link resolvers to get the user over to full text. In Curriculum Builder, if I go down and take a look at some of these, you might imagine instead of there being a PDF link here, this might be a custom link that jumps them out to the publisher's platform, or it would be your open URL link resolver here. So if you're familiar with how to work with EDS to set up linking to non-EBSCO resources, Curriculum Builder is actually an EDS profile itself. So the same custom links that you employ in EDS get employed here in Curriculum Builder too. Let's see, in the library we typically do these searches for faculty and send them persistent links. It seems like this tool is mostly useful for faculty doing their own searches. Is that correct? At this point, yeah, that's the idea, is to give them the power to do it for themselves. However, we've got a new release that's targeted for August at this point that will allow librarians to go in and insert items into reading lists without needing faculty intervention to add them as a course. What that means is if a faculty member does send you a list of citations, you can actually curate a reading list and have them link to it. In fact, you could do it today, but there's not a real, so the workflow, if you wanted to do this today, is faculty members send you a document with a list of citations, all right? Your library goes through, and what they could do is if they have a dummy account in Blackboard or Desire to Learn or one of these things, and you have a dummy class, you can make a reading list in that class that's populated with that faculty member's request. So you build a reading list using that citation list. And what you do is you go up to the top, you mark it as public, and you tell your faculty member, all right, I've compiled these together for you. Just go in there, import from an existing list. It's labeled with your name and class number. Copy that in, and then you're done. In a future release, we actually want to eliminate some of those clicks to where librarians can go in and create lists and assign them to faculty so faculty members have them without having to do any kind of copying or anything like that. So that scenario, it is possible to do that today, albeit with maybe 2 more clicks than we would like. Let's see, if the resource found was not from an EBSCO database, would the student need to authenticate through the library's proxy, or does LTI handle that too? All right, actually this is a nice segue for the student view of this, all right? Because I haven't clicked on any of these full text links so far. I'll click on it here as a faculty member, just so you can see, see how the document is going to load. So you'll notice it loads the PDF document here. However, let me flip back over to student view and explain how the authentication pieces of this work. All right, I'm going to publish this real quick so my students can actually see it. And then I'm going to switch to student view. Okay, so now I'm logged into this class as a student. I'm going to go to modules because I know this is where my faculty member is posting things for me to do. And I see there's a new link here, History of Nanotech Reading List, and I'm going to click on it. I mentioned the LTI links tell Curriculum Builder who's coming in. So in this particular circumstance, what's happening in the background here is Curriculum Builder knows, hey, it's a student coming in, not a faculty member. So don't give them a search box or any ability to edit this list. Just give them a list of readings that they need to do, all right? If I click on a PDF document here as a student, you'll notice at no point is this going to make me log in a second time. I'm just given the full text of the document, all right? This happens because the LTI protocol includes a consumer key and secret. And what we can use from an EBSCO, from EBSCO's perspective is we can generally say that I am certain that anybody who got to this list has logged in through Canvas or Blackboard or D2L or whatever learning management system there is. The LTI protocol does send kind of a handshake saying this user is logged in. So for that reason, what we've decided to do is for all these EBSCO host PDF documents and ebooks, we're not going to enforce any second authentication. We're just going to allow them to load straight from this screen here. However, this ties in nicely to a question that Laura had earlier on non-EBSCO full text documents. Let's imagine that this first article here was a ProQuest full text. We found it because EDS has great indexing of journal content, but the full text of this actually lives over in ProQuest. So what we would display here in this full text area might be your open URL link resolver, or it might be a custom link that jumps up to the JSTOR platform or wherever the full text lives. Now the user is going to have to pass through some kind of authentication before they get to full text. So what that means is if your library is already using the same single sign-on service that Canvas or your learning management system is using, then great. They don't have to log in again because it will remember they logged in when they logged into Canvas or whatever learning management system you're using. However, in most cases, and I suspect this is probably true at most people's libraries here, is that you don't use the same login type of pattern for your library materials as you do for your campus learning management system. Your campus learning management system may use some kind of central authentication service, but you're using EasyProxy, and those two things aren't tied together. In those circumstances, clicking on this that first time when you try to jump out to a non-EBSCO resource, they may hit your proxy server on the way out that first time, but then your proxy server will remember them because they've logged in through the proxy system after that. So in short, if you've got single sign-on implemented across your campus, including your library and your learning management system, nope, they'll never see another login. But if you are using something different from the learning management system, you will only see a login when they try to access a non-EBSCO resource. So what this means for all you EBSCO host-only curriculum builder institutions is that you'll never really see another login because you're only showing EBSCO content at this point. All right, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and leave student view. Let me actually take a quick peek at some of the other questions. Oh, great questions in here. I want to show this real quick, and then some of these questions I can go back and answer. So I'm back to this reading list as a faculty member. If I click on See Current Reading List up at the top, the #1 enhancement request that we had from faculty members is they wanted to know which students clicked on which readings. This was not in our first release because we weren't collecting student names as they were accessing materials there, mostly because, I was a librarian and I kind of had some hesitation on doing that. However, after talking with a lot of IT departments and a lot of faculty members and a lot of librarians about what would be fair use of student names, being able to tell that a student accessed something that a faculty member specifically assigned them did not seem too far out of bounds. Now that said, this is an optional feature, so I want to show it to you. You'll notice that here at the top that it says one student has accessed this list, and it's someone called test student. That makes sense. I went into student view, and the name of my fake student is test student. As I scroll down through my readings here, I notice that one student accessed this one, but one student did not access this one. So at a reading by reading level, I can tell if my students have read materials or not. Well, I take that back. I can't tell if they read it. I can tell if they clicked on it and it opened on their screen. I cannot tell if their eyeballs went across the text and they actually read the article. So that's in here too. Let's take a look. I do want to show, I've mentioned a couple of things are optional. So there are some administrative features to talk about and statistics to talk about. All right. The first thing to note is that in EBSCO Admin, so let me go over to EBSCO Admin here. Let me go ahead and log in. Oops. Okay, I'm going to go over to a sample EDS profile. EDS API, here we go. In EBSCO Admin, many of you on the WebEx may already be familiar with our reports and statistics. This is what tells you how many searches happened, how many downloads happened, all of that kind of usage information. Curriculum Builder will be a separate profile, which means you'll be able to tell which usage came from Curriculum Builder versus which usage came from your normal library search box. So in terms of evaluating Curriculum Builder as time goes on, you'll be able to come and see how much traffic it's actually driving to your website, to your library collection. However, there were some things that were not in the typical reports and statistics that a lot of IT units wanted to know and that a lot of librarians wanted to know. So I do want to show you the additional statistics that you get through Curriculum Builder's Administrators panel. So Curriculum Builder comes with its own Administrators panel. Here, if I look at statistics up at the top, these will not be full text download statistics. That you'll still get from EBSCO Admin. This instead gives you more identifying information about who is using the tool. So I'll see the names and email addresses of faculty members that are using the tool. You won't see any student names or email addresses here. This is purely for you to be able to identify which faculty members on your campus are actually making use of the tool. You'll see an idea of how many total lists there are and how many readings are on those lists, as well as how many faculty members overall are using it, as well as which course numbers are using it. So you can kind of evaluate this from a departmental perspective. If you can see, you know, the English department is leveraging it very heavily, but for some reason our social sciences departments are not. You'll be able to get that kind of information from this list. There's also a whole set of things you can do to the user interface. So if I look back at Curriculum Builder live here, you'll notice I've got this red library logo up at the top, and it says brought to you by the University Library underneath this box. And if I scroll down to the bottom of this screen, you'll notice there's a contact email address, a link to the library's homepage, and a link to help using this tool. All right, so all of that stuff is configured in the administrator panel, where you can come in and assign what logo you want to appear at the top left, what email address you want to get notified if someone has questions from that bottom of the screen. A link to the library's homepage can go here. So all of this is customizable from this administrator's panel. If you do have someone who does a lot of CSS work for your library's website, they can actually add their own CSS style sheet here to completely change the look and feel of Curriculum Builder if they wanted to. All right. There's some other options here that I'm not going to go over, but there are a couple of things here to point out that remove full text and available and library collection limiters from view. A lot of times we see libraries not want to expose things that are not in the library's collection to their faculty members as they build their list. They want that list to be made up of things that the library does have. So if I select yes for this option, that means in Curriculum Builder, let me go back here, and if I were to go up and do a search for library resources, and you search for nanotechnology history again, you'll notice that on the left-hand side of my results screen, I have one limiter for peer-reviewed, but I don't have a limiter for full text. And that's unusual. Usually databases have a full text limiter here. Well, that's because here in my admin, I said, don't show that one. I don't want my faculty members to assign things that we don't have to our students. However, if I select no and I update my settings, if I go back here and I refresh this page, this frame reload, we'll let this reload a second. You'll notice that, oh, now I do have a full text limiter, and I could potentially uncheck it and now get a bunch of results that the library does not have. So this is a decision that you'll make locally to see if you want to include stuff that may not have a full text link. We have seen some libraries go ahead and do this, but what they do is they create a custom link for things that they don't have, and what that link does is it goes to a request form that the faculty member can actually place a request for this item. Curriculum Builder does not do copyright management at this point, although we do have it on our radar for future enhancements. So that particular link, if a faculty member would follow it, would probably trigger some kind of local workflow where you get that request, you go secure the rights, and then you let the faculty member know that it's available and that they can link to it. All right. Other things that are in here that are relatively important, some learning management systems are very, very finicky about whether or not you can embed stuff within the frame of a learning management system. So for example, Canvas here doesn't typically care if you put something in the frame of Canvas. Others do. So one other option we see our libraries selecting quite often is open all lists in the new window. That way it pops up instead of being there embedded in the frame. There are more options there, and I'll show you where you can go to get more information about that bit here in a second. All right, I'm going to take a look at some of the questions because it's 12:40. I want to make sure I get through them. All right, let's see. How permanent are the reading lists? Can they transfer from one semester to the next? Yeah, they can. There are a couple of ways to do it. Notice there is the option for copy course support here. If you're at a campus where, IT every semester makes a copy of all of this semester's classes and copies them forward to next semester, typically what they can do is whenever that new list is populated in a new course, the faculty member has to click on it once to trigger it to repopulate with the old ones. The reason that happens is because in Canvas, if I go to modules here, this individual link for History of Nanotech reading list has a specific ID. When I copy it forward, it doesn't actually copy this list's ID into its Canvas. It doesn't copy these LTI links forward. So you'll see this kind of problem with all LTI tools. However, we do have a workaround. If I launch into this tool, you'll notice there is a list ID. Let me let this load. Down here at the very, very bottom, it's hard to see on your screen. Let me make this a bit bigger so we can take a look. There's a list ID down here at the bottom that you can actually use to make a persistent link to this list for every semester, and then the faculty member does not even have to launch that list the first time. Every time the semester starts anew, that list is populated, students are accessing it and reading it. So there is list persistence there. Now, with the hosted version, what our typical policy is if no one has touched the list in over 2 years, that means no student, no faculty member has touched that list in over 2 years, we are going to purge it from the system to make it easier to read through those statistics reports and the list of lists. However, if I go up here to the top, I can also download the library materials that are in my reading list, and this will put them all out into an Excel document. That way you can keep it around longer. If you get that one faculty member who maybe they only teach a course once every 3 years or so, and they want to reuse that thing from 3 years ago, these export files will allow you to re-import them, so you can make a local copy of all the reading lists if you'd like. The CSV files that these put out are also good for just kind of taking a look and seeing what things have been added to lists. You get all the titles and databases that have been used in Curriculum Builder from these export files. So these have some uses other than just archiving these reading lists. Let's see, what would be the advantage to using e-reserves? All right, well, one is the faculty member actually takes control. All right, and I think you're already pointing out here that another benefit is that stats would remain live and in your EBSCO admin, so you can actually check on that stuff. So it's all in one place, it's all apples to apples type of comparison. I think the real goal here, though, was to make it a value add for faculty members. They are the ones that can kind of take ownership of building their lists and have the library's materials brought into this space in a tool that they're familiar with. So that's one of the key advantages when comparing it to a system that the library is the one that's kind of pulling aside things and loading them and allowing libraries to link, allowing faculty members to link over to that reserved system. It's kind of a hands-off approach. Sure, open the ebook. All right, we'll open the ebook. So let's go into this history of nanotechnology. We'll go to the reading list. And we will go to that ebook. Here it is. I'll click on the PDF document here. So if it's an EBSCO ebook, it takes you to the EBSCO reader. So here I'm at the ebook at this point, and I can kind of jump through the table of contents, jump to chapter 5 because that's what the faculty member said to read, and I can read it at this point. That might be an eBrary ebook or an EBL ebook, and that would be a custom link over to their platform underneath that. So you might end up at the EBL platform or the eBrary platform, depending on where you get your ebooks from. Let's see, what vendors other than ProQuest do you have agreements with? Well, there's a list of about 20 Oh gosh, I'm not our content guy, so I don't know the answer to this question exactly, but I think it's somewhere close to 20,000 publisher partners. There are some big hitters in there that people will recognize, the Gales, the JSTOR, the Elsevier's, but there are all kinds of smaller ones too, all right? And here we're talking about EDS indexing and that kind of thing. Is it possible to make the library search look like an institution's EDS look and feel? They would better recognize what they are searching. Yeah. And that's typically done through that external CSS document. So you can load an a CSS document into Curriculum Builder and change the entire look and feel of the system. Let's see, recap how to get to the admin area. Yep, so I did not actually show you how to get to the admin area. So the admin area of Curriculum Builder is curriculumbuilder.ebscohost.com/admin.php. All right, and if I log in here with, basically I'm going to log in here with a consumer key and secret that we provide you whenever you sign up for Curriculum Builder. Let me log in here, and that'll take you into this administrator screen. So if you can dig up, if you're already a subscriber to Curriculum Builder, dig up that welcome letter, and those values there will allow you to get into this particular screen. All right, a couple more. Is it possible that one could add something to the reading list that is not full text? I think I covered this a little bit, that if you don't allow them to do that, they will not have the option to uncheck full text. So that means you are preventing that kind of activity. But yeah, it could be a problem if you do allow them to uncheck that, and then they do add that to the reading list. Well, again, the best suggestion there is, rather than show an interlibrary loan link for things that you don't have, instead show a different link that goes to a request form where they can, it's a little bit more apparent that the thing that they just added to their list isn't something that's actually in the library's collection. Let's see, faculty don't often understand that the article appears in the database. We'll hide articles that are not full text in EDS. Yeah, so I think I got that. Please feel free to chat again if I did not answer that question. All right. It can import resources that are not in English, so let's go ahead and do a better search. In fact, I don't remember what I have in this particular reading list profile, but let's find out if I have any foreign language stuff. So I'm going to search for library resources. A lot of our databases that contain foreign language material have English language indexing, so I'm hoping I'll be able to find something. Just doing a very broad search and then limiting by language. So 1 second while I do this kind of search here. Okay, I'm going to go over to the left-hand side, select language. Let's find something in a completely different character set. Here we go. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to pick it. All right, so let's see if we can find one that has actually, well, here's somewhere the journal title is in a non-English character set, and I can add that to the reading list. Let me see if I can find one that has a title. In fact, you know, let me go ahead and copy some of this stuff too. Copy that. Maybe if I search on that, search. I have no idea what I'm searching on, by the way, so I'm assuming that that's fine. All right, so here's some other stuff that's non-English. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my reading list too. And then whenever we go into the reading list, there we go. You'll see that the characters form nicely here. And if these things had been full text, it would just kick you out to the PDF document that had the full text of those items. Pricing, that is definitely not up my alley. But typically it's a fraction of what you pay for EDS. If you don't have EDS, your regional sales manager is going to be the best one to talk to about that. However, I do want to point out real quick that there are actually 2 ways to get Curriculum Builder, all right? One way is to go with the hosted version that I've kind of been demonstrating this entire time. The reason the hosted version is nice is because what happens when you sign up for Curriculum Builder, we send you a welcome letter. All right, the reason that this is important is because now I'm going to show you what your learning management system administrator has to do to get this up and running. All right, so I'm in Canvas. In Canvas, I go to Settings. I go to View Apps. and I'm going to add a new app. So in Canvas world, LTI tools are called apps. In Moodle, they're called activity plugins. In Blackboard, they're called building block LTI tools. So they have different terminology in each learning management system, but all of them have the ability to get to a form that looks like this. All right, let me make this a little bit smaller. So this form is basically a configuration form. Here, this is where you name Curriculum Builder what you want it called. So maybe you call it Super Search Reading Lists. We will give you the consumer key and secret to plug in here. So your key and your secret. This will be part of your welcome letter. Your welcome letter will also tell you that our launch URL is curriculumbuilder.ebscohost.com/lti.php. So we tell you what this is. We tell you what should go in domain. You have a choice of what you send to the tool, either public information, so name and email address, or maybe you don't send any of that information and you leave it as anonymous. And then you click on Submit at the bottom, and boom, you've got Curriculum Builder. That's what happens if you go with our hosted version of Curriculum Builder. Plus, any updates that we make to the tool just kind of show up whenever we push those updates. You don't have to do any kind of special updating or anything like that. You just get to take advantage of new features as they're released. Again, it's a very, very quick and painless process for learning management system administrators. However, it behooves me to tell you that we actually have an open source version of this. It's actually on GitHub, you can find the web address, I think, just by Googling Curriculum Builder GitHub, and you'll find it. But this is actually the source code for this application. So if you've got someone locally who is extremely comfortable with PHP and MySQL technologies, then they can actually download this and install it locally without charge. All right, there is one major caveat here, is that like all other open source applications, it's offered on an as-is kind of basis. What that means is we cannot provide you with customer support for the tool if you choose to go with this free route, mostly because there's so many variances in the technologies that you may have locally. Your server may be a Windows server, your server may be a Linux server, and this is the kind of question that our frontline support is not equipped to handle. So realistically, we are unable to provide any support for the self-hosted version. However, if you didn't freak out when I said PHP MySQL application and you're like, oh, I know exactly how that's going to work, then you could actually take a look at this open source version and see if you want to give it a shot. I provide complete documentation on how to get it installed, what the server requirements are, and that kind of thing. And this is especially for the DIY kind of libraries who don't have a huge budget to add something new to their list of things that they've got to renew every year. This is available. But again, keep in mind that if you email support saying, hey, we're having trouble getting this thing launched, we're not going to be able to support the open source version of it. There are several libraries out there that are running the open source version of it. So again, if you've got someone that's comfortable with PHP MySQL, they'll probably read through this and kind of nod their head and say, okay, I kind of figure out how this works. But we've found that even larger libraries that have a whole systems team with multiple people who know how to do this kind of stuff, we have found that the pricing, if you think about 4 hours of a system librarian salary, we've typically found that the hosted version has been cost effective anyways. So even if you do have the capacity to do it, the fact that you don't have to invest local expertise into it, local resources into it, often makes the hosted version much more affordable in the long run anyways. But it's here if you want to take a look at it. Let's see, does the link to an ebook require a multiple user license? It does not, which means there may be some turnaways for users that click on that ebook link trying to read it. So one thing that is there, though, in the detailed record of the ebooks is what the concurrent user count is. There may be some user education there on having faculty members not adding ebooks that are not multiple users to this profile, to their reading list, and you can actually curate the content of your Curriculum Builder profile separate from EDS as well. So if you want to take out your ebooks from the Curriculum Builder profile, you can do that without impacting EDS. So let's see, we don't subscribe to EDS, so what would happen if we allowed these results to include non-full text items? Yes, your link resolver button would appear there like it does in EBSCO host. So the way I like to describe the full text linking that you see in Curriculum Builder is go to your EBSCO host databases. What links do you see there? Those are the ones that are going to appear in Curriculum Builder. What we do see a lot of times is there is an open URL link resolver for all those non-full text items from your Curriculum Builder database, and those can appear there. All right, I want to kind of wrap everything back up together. So Curriculum Builder is an LTI plugin, and again, I mentioned LTI not to freak people out with yet another acronym, but because it's useful vocabulary when talking with an IT department. See if they're comfortable with an LTI tool already, because one thing we can do is offer a trial of Curriculum Builder, as well as EDS. So if you don't have EDS and you're curious about what that would look like, you can also request an EDS trial. But independent of EDS, we can offer you trials of the EBSCO host only and the regular curriculum, the EDS Curriculum Builder products. The trial that we offer is the same thing as the fully functioning version with one exception. The trial only contains library and information services and technology abstracts. So only one database is in there. It's not going to reflect your actual library collection. But what it will do is it'll give your IT department a chance to configure it, to nod their heads and say, yep, this is working as expected, without kind of worrying if Curriculum Builder is going to plug into it or not. You can trial it before you go down that route. But definitely talk to your regional sales managers, your regional sales reps, if you want some pricing on the hosted version. Again, I think what you'll find is for what you're paying for your other library resources, this is not a major expense. So feel free to talk with your sales reps about this. Any other questions that I can help answer? I think I got them all that were in the Q&As, but if I did not answer your question, feel free to repost it, and I apologize for missing it in this list of questions. Otherwise, I do appreciate you taking the hour today to take a look at Curriculum Builder with me. If you do have any questions, feel free to follow up. I'm going to put my email address at the risk of exposing it to all 200 some odd of you. I'm going to go ahead and put it into the chat box. If you do have any questions about Curriculum Builder, you can contact me or your local EBSCO rep.